Hello everyone, welcome to Graphic Design Studio Tools and Techniques Chapter 2. In this chapter we'll be looking at utility knife safety and cutting tips. We're looking at a couple of different Olfa knives here. You could have either model. They're both high quality knives. The other thing to realize is that each blade has these little score lines on it, diagonal to match the end of the blade, which is also diagonal. And these score lines are embedded into the metal of the blade, and they are break points, which means as you wear out the blade, you wear out the tip of the blade, you could break off a point on the blade and have a fresh tip to work with. So one blade actually will last a fair bit of time with these points cut off. When you run out of blade, that's when you have to replace the blade. The telltale sign that the blade needs replacing is it won't make a clean cut. So let's look at how we test that. And tracing paper is a good test paper because it's very lightweight, something you'll be working with, and something that is a challenge to cut with a blade that isn't super sharp. I'm going to put my ruler here and I'm going to try to cut a strip off this tracing paper. And when I pull the blade out, I don't want to go too far. Just enough to get past the end of the knife. We don't need too much extra there. I'm going to hold my ruler down firmly. Remember, this is a cork back ruler, so it's fairly easy to hold in place. Now, as I cut, I want to have a fairly low angle to the knife, and I also want to make sure that I'm cutting away from the main area of my work. And I want to take it slow. You don't want to have a lot of pressure going towards the ruler here, just enough to keep the blade in line. So let's see if I can make a clean cut. Oh, and there's where it went wrong. So I started out okay, didn't look too bad, and then the paper started bunching up here. So I'll try to finish that cut. And that's what we ended up with. So this is obviously no good. And it tells me that the blade is not sharp. So let's try this other knife. I don't know how sharp this blade is. Try the cut there. And that was a little better. The other thing we want to look for is on the edge of that cut, is it clean or is it a bit rough looking? I wouldn't call this super clean, but it's not bad. Certainly passable, better than the first cut. So let's look at how we change a blade. There are 8 segments in a blade, which means we have 8 chances to snap off portions of the blade and get a fresh blade 8 times over. When we run out of portions of the blade, we're right down to the last segment, and that gets dull, then we have to replace the entire blade. So in this particular case, I have about 4 sections left. So I'm going to snap one off so I have a fresh, clean, sharp blade. Now you want to find out what side of the knife has the score lines. The score lines will show up as little engraved lines diagonal on the blade. They are slightly recessed. If you turn the blade the other way around, you will see some faint lines, but they aren't actually going into the blade. So you need to make sure you have the score lines downwards. I put the score line downward, and then I want to angle the knife so that I'm holding it at an angle that's equal to the score line. And I need to put downward pressure to snap the blade. Now, one thing we don't want to do is take any chances. This is totally unsafe, what I'm going to show you, but good to see the unsafe way, and then we'll look at the safe way. So I'm going to push down very hard with my wrist here, holding the knife up at a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to snap that blade off on the score line. Here we go. And there's the snapped blade. So that was somewhat successful. However, you probably noticed that the blade went flying into the air and it could have hit me in the eye. I'm wearing glasses right now. I also shielded my face with my other hand. You can't see that in the camera. So I was taking precautions. But you certainly shouldn't be living life that dangerously. What you would want to do is cover the blade with a piece of paper. And I'm going to snap off another piece this time, only I'm going to cover it so you can't see what's going on, but it will be totally safe. There's my blade. And now I have a sharp knife again. Now we've got these blade fragments. What do we do with them? With a piece of masking tape, we can wrap up those blades. And I want the tape to go around them a number of times so that there are no sharp edges anywhere. And when I'm confident that that's not going to hurt anyone, I can put that in the garbage pail. Now, what if you run out of blades? Let's just see. We're at one here that's pretty well out. So let's just take that off. I'm going to unscrew this thumb screw at the back and then pull the whole assembly out. If it doesn't want to come out, just unscrew a bit more. And now I've got the knife and the knife assembly, the holder, the slider device. And I can put in a whole new blade now. And I want to make sure the angle I load the blade with into the knife equals the angle of the slope of the front of the knife, meaning I don't want to put it upside down. And I take this adjustment knob, knife holder device, stick this little knob through that opening, and I can slide the blade in from the back of the knife. When I get it in there, I can tighten up this wheel. And when you've tightened that wheel firmly, you have essentially locked the blade in place. So when I put away the knife, I want to loosen that off, drag it back so that it's all inside the casing, no bare blade hanging out, and then it's safe to transplant or store or whatever you might want to do with it. I'm not going to hurt myself. When we want to start cutting again, unscrew that thumb screw, slide it out, and I want to just go outwards beyond the first score line. I don't want to go any further out. So that knife is sharp, ready to go. How to be a Jedi knife master. Another important consideration when cutting is how high an angle you are holding the knife at. If the angle is up too high, you're more likely to have the paper bind on you when you're trying to cut. Generally, we want to keep the knife at a lower angle. So let's look at probably something like this would be ideal. And then finally, we don't want to go too low because then we just run into problems with the knife grounding out. But a dull knife at a high angle is certainly going to cause the paper to bind. So definitely you don't want to be way up here really in any case. Just keep that angle comfortably low. Take it slow. And you should be successful. Thank you for joining me today. Please come back for our next chapter, Mastering the Mechanical Pencil.